let's look how we can convert this into a mesh. So I had a bit of a crash, and actually now is tomorrow. So let's just try and remember what I was doing. So I'm going to make this into a mesh. So how we go about it is, first of all, we have to convert it to a volume, because we want to get hold of a thing called a level set. Convert, not covert. Convert to volume, like so. So we plug that in, and we want to turn on store level set, and we want to turn off store fog density. We don't need that. I'm just going to put the resolution to absolutes for real world values, and I'm going to turn on adaptivity to give it a bit of optimization, and everything else we can leave. So next thing is to make a volume to mesh node, like that. Plug that in, and fingers crossed if we plug that in, there we go. Let's unplug the particles, and we have a mesh. It's pretty noisy and a bit too close to the sort of particles. We want to just give it a bit of a smoothing. We can do that by level set threshold. So if I put that to 1, I'm going to get a big blob. So the bigger it is, the sort of smoother-y, it's a sort of more of a lower res optimization. Not optimization, but meshing. So 0.5, make it a bit smaller again. 0.1, makes it like that. Let's just do, what shall I do? Is make it a bit smaller again. 0.5. I think maybe that's going to be good. I think if I go down to something like 1, it just starts putting lots of holes in it and looking a bit broken up. And we'll probably have to double check this sort of at the end point just to see. So I'm just going to go to the end, which is might be 100, might be 99, I can't remember. I'll have to think about it. I'll pause it while it thinks. So I went to sort of frame 68 then, because it had more of a splash. So it's not too bad. Got some sort of squarey artifacts there. We can play around with. This is all fine. We'll just leave that as is. I think if we can maybe make that smaller. Let's try that. So I'm in the volume, convert to volume, making the resolution a bit higher. Just having a little think. See if that has any effect on this stuff. Yep, I got rid of it. So, so we've got these basically two different sort of things we can build up with the resolution here. So the resolution in there, detail size, and we can offset as well. You can shrink and expand it there, and then we've got the threshold, level set threshold size, plus we can ignore that because that's only for if you put this to custom. Resolution, automatic, adaptive property, detail size, smoothing. So let's just go back to wireframe on smooth, so we can see it's not too bad. It's quite nicely done. We can, if we make this number smaller, it will increase the resolution of the mesh. I'm just going to think about it for a bit. So I've halved or doubled, which is probably quadrupled the mesh resolution. It's taking a while. I'll pause. So that's increased the resolution, and this adaptivity is sort of on by default, and you can see it's sort of adapting the mesh. Do we want to do anything else? I wonder if what I'll do is I'll just take that back to 1 because it'll speed it up a bit. Pause that again. There we go. So I'm just going to see if I can remember. Do I make these smaller or bigger to get these less blobby? Let's try making it bigger. Pause that again. Oh no, I did it. No, make them bigger. So I want to make those, say, let's go 3. See what happens. That's made them a bit smaller. So that's meshing. You can obviously cache that out. Let's turn off that. Let's put a material on this just to change its colour so it stands out a bit more. Paper material, Lambert. We'll get a bit slower. There we go. Let's just hit that. So it's a pretty good measure. I think they've been really improving it. It's got some quite good optimizing in it. This might be a little bit bobbly now. I wonder if I crank up the smooth, see what we get. No, I didn't really do much. Maybe taking this up to say 4. We'll get rid of that. So it's always a balancing act between a sort of, the initial resolution of the sim and trying to squeeze as much detail out of that by fiddling with either your detail size here, which sort of basically voxelizes the particles. So the smaller you make this, the sort of more detailed it's going to get. But it is fundamentally reliant on the original sim detail. Can't really make it any more detailed than that is. But so that didn't really do much, did it, when I did that? Anyway, let's leave it like that. Let's do a, maybe I'll go 5. I'll just quickly set it up to do a quick render. Just going to let this sort of do that. I'll pause it while it's thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. That's smooth out a bit. So this will make it a bit smoother, but you will start getting a bit bigger in your blobbiness. But once we've got motion blur on these, they won't look that blobby. I'm just going to pause it while I let that calculate. There we go. So a little bit more smoother. So let's assign a material. So we can just take this one plug that in. Oops. And then plug that in. It will be quite slow, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the graphs calculation. So once I've set it all up, I'll turn it back on again. There we go. So pause, stops all that. Let's make a light. Sky dome. And I will minimize you. Open up you. Let's put a HDR in there. Just got this one. It's probably not the best one, but it'll do. Make sure you turn it to RAW. And let's assign a material. So let's just, oops, so all that stuff going on. Let's get rid of that. Shaders. Arnold standard surface. I'm just gonna put it to deep water. And let's just drag you in. Surface shader, surface material it goes into. Alright, should be that. Oh, I've got to unpause. Let's go. Edit. Resume. Just going to think about it. And what you would probably be better off doing is obviously caching again after this. You know, and that way it would be a lot quicker once you've, you know, for doing the sort of rendering aspect of it. Because at the moment it's recalculating this every time you turn it on and off. So let's go render view. Let's just see what we've got going on here. And I'm just gonna turn that off in the viewport, in the render, so put the visibility to 0 and make sure I've got motion blur turned on. So one of the good things about Bob files is you don't need to mess around with motion blur, it's already sort of in there. Just have to turn it on. I might make it a bit bigger. Let's make it HD. Right, hit render. This probably will take a while because I've just opened up Maya and it has to reload all those Arnold plugins, which can take about 4 or 5 minutes. So I'll pause. Right, so there's sort of render of it. It's a bit low res with the blobby bits there, but it's quite a low res sim. You can see it's meshed out. I did do one before, which I've probably shown you actually when I was doing anything about scale, but this is one I did at a lot higher res, and that was just did I mesh that? Yeah, I did mesh that as a mesh. So you know, you can get some really good results out of it. So that's the meshing of NPM.